Let me bring in Heather Lake, Fox 5 San Diego. Heather, good to see you.
Good to see you and hear you, Amy. It's been a minute.
It has been. I can see you're fresh off an assignment from the morning
Yeah.
show, but I'm so glad you took a minute. We actually first met when you were on assignment. I think it was a bomb cyclone coming into California when you were doing reports. That was the first time that we were able to connect.
Yeah, so I mean, welcome to my office, first of all. A lot of people know that as reporters, we are always out and about. And I think no matter what, for meteorologists especially, and people who work in weather, our bread and butter is obviously being out in the field. So, I mean, we connected because I was covering something for a station you worked for, and then they were taking Southern California information and forecasts. And so I think I was standing out in the middle of a giant storm with every layer of water protective, whether it was I think I had on a giant poncho with like a jacket underneath and galoshes and pants on that were rainproof, and nothing was working at the time.
Yeah, weather in Cali has been super crazy lately. I guess, when you look at the storms, even over the past 2, 3 years, everyone says, "Oh, it's perfect weather in San Diego. You want to go there to be a forecaster because they pay you in sunshine, and it's just so perfect." But very little people know, unless they're actually living there, how crazy San Diego could be, from the fog, which can totally influence and impact your day, all the way down to the insane record-breaking snow that has come from the atmospheric rivers. So to give people a little perspective, when you're going out on assignment, you're not just taking your sunglasses. It really is everything, a smorgasbord of weather.
It really is. And, we don't get the giant storms that you would get in the Midwest or, I'm originally from Orlando, Florida. So you get those convective storms in the afternoons in the summers where you get giant thunderstorms. But here we have the situation where our infrastructure really can't take a lot of rain. So when we do get these huge atmospheric rivers moving through, if you get to 1 inch of rain in a matter of an hour, we're talking about flash flooding, flood issues. And then you go from a situation where you get offshore winds and we have fire weather with wildfires raging, and then a week later an atmospheric river with a ton of water, you're getting mudslides, you're getting all kinds of debris flows. And people say, "Oh, it's sunny and 70. You're a forecaster in San Diego." I'm like, you guys have no idea. You talked about the fog, and one thing that we really have the problem with is one of the hardest things to forecast that people don't realize is what's called the marine layer, right? Those clouds move on in and everybody thinks it's so beautiful. Well, May, June, and a lot of July, we are covered in clouds, this thick layer of coastal clouds. People pay a lot of money to not see the sun for a lot of time, and it's really hard to forecast when those are going to move out throughout the day. That's actually one of the hardest things to forecast in the whole country.
And I think that they all have nicknames. I remember May Gray, June Gloom. What's July?
hmm
Is there one for July?
There's not one for July, but when we get that kind of weather pattern settling in early, we call it Grapril.
Yeah, there's another good one. I like it. Yeah. July is just like, we're so sick of this. When is the fog leaving?
Yes, well, a lot of us, you end up getting seasonal depression in the spring because if you don't go inland, you literally just sit in this just kind of gray haze. It almost feels like Seattle at some point in San Diego. And so you'll have years that it's worse than others, but I will literally raise my hand and tell my family, like, we're going to Palm Springs for the weekend because I cannot deal with this anymore.
You got to escape it sometimes. You really do have a grueling schedule. Tell people a little bit what it's like. Sometimes the glamour of TV really gives people the wrong idea. You have to get up really early. You are a mom. Your days can be long, I'm really sure. But tell them a little bit about when that alarm goes off and what your morning schedule looks like.
Yeah, so for the last almost 17 years, I've been with Fox 5 in the morning show, and my alarm has gone off mostly at 3 a.m., sometimes some earlier days, depending on what we're, broadcasting and what we're doing. Like for instance, we have Padres opening day around the corner, and if I'm doing weather from the field, I have to get out there early and have a big setup and engineer everything to make sure it goes well. So, I'm the person that's in charge of my graphics. I'm the person that's in charge of my hair, my makeup, my wardrobe. So I always joke with everyone, do you like my makeup today? Great. I'm the makeup artist, the hairdresser, I am the stylist and the engineer all in one. And a lot of people do think they want to be on TV and how beautiful it would be to be able to point at a green screen with a couple of numbers. And, hopefully you're good at doing the performance side because the behind the scenes it happens so quickly. Everyone, you really have to know what you're doing because you don't get to just focus on the performance. We wake up at 3 a.m. I'm on air by 5, and I have a slew of graphics that I'm doing from 5 to 6. I do weather, and then by 6, I'm out in the field, and I'm going live by about 6:30 most days, and then our show's over at 10, and I go live about once an hour, maybe twice if it's breaking news.
Yeah, it really can be a very intense schedule. Once you leave work, how do you get through the day? Because you still have other responsibilities. I mean, really, this is just your first job. You have another job. You have a second job.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of us on the morning show, I have to give a lot of credit to the women who did it before me, because I truly think that if I didn't watch some of my coworkers have babies and come back to the morning show and do it gracefully, that I don't know that I would think it's possible. And so watching it, I was like, okay, this is possible. So, coffee helps a lot. Naps here and there help, and like 15 to 20-minute naps, not the ones where you're down for the count because you just feel horrible when you get up. But it's a lot of trial and error. I pick up my kids from school at 3, and when they were babies and weren't in school, I came home and cuddled with them and did everything with them. And it is kind of like you're a working mom who works when people sleep. But I also say it's the most beautiful thing, because while some of my working mom friends will say, like, I feel like I missed that chapter, or they look at pictures of their babies and they're like, that went by so fast, I missed this. I'll look at pictures of my babies and I'm like, I had so much time with them. Like, I spent every hour of every day. I might have been exhausted, but it was totally worth it. And you never look back thinking that you missed something.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I really do. I was on morning schedules for a long period when my kids were small, and it made all the difference to be able to be there and be present. And yeah, maybe a few hours of lost sleep, but we get that back eventually. The other thing that I think is kind of cool, that now that your kids are a little older too, you actually really enjoy the weather itself by doing so much recreation. You're in a perfect spot where you can surf, and you also can get to the higher elevation to snow. You guys are a really active family.
Oh yeah. So my husband was a former pro snowboarder, and me coming from Florida, it was kind of like an opposites attract kind of thing. I wakeboarded in high school, and I figured I'll put this board on and just pick it up. And in fact, it was a very big challenge. But I kind of dug my heels in, and I think once you take a couple trips to
Literally.
Utah, yeah.
Yeah.
And and as soon as you take a couple of trips to Utah, you sort of, I mean, it's so beautiful. If anyone's ever been to Little Cottonwood, and I know that you have spent many years there, it is breathtaking. So you almost learn it because you want to be in that habitat, right? Like, you want to be in that environment and just soak it all up and be in nature. So, in the last decade, I basically was like, I'm going to figure this sport out and do it. And the kids are skiing and we're snowboarding. And so we do that. And then, having the ocean during, the day. I mean, I just go for a run on the Coast Highway. I've run several marathons, and always training for something, some kind of next race. And so there's just this stretch on the Coast Highway that I could run literally every day, and it never gets old. It's just the most stunning views, and there's something about being a forecaster and being able to know what the weather is and also use it to your advantage, that, it's great.
I love that. That's a great perspective. I also am a runner. I did the San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon many years ago, but we're going to have to get a race on the calendar, you and I. That would be super. That would be super fun to do. I want to ask you about a couple of stories that you've done. I've seen you everywhere around San Diego on your social media clips. Do you have some fun experiences, or maybe even unique opportunities that you've had as a reporter to cover things that you're like, wow, I would never get an opportunity to do something like this unless I was in television and doing, TV?
Well, I will say that sometimes I feel like that almost on a daily basis, because a lot of us reporters who have been in the business for a little bit, more than a decade, you realize that you were an influencer before influencers were a thing. I get to go inside the restaurant, like for instance today, where I can take the picture sitting in the seat where nobody's there, and you don't have to feel that awkward feeling of like, take my picture and everyone's watching, I'm like, wow, how awesome is this that I could sit here and use like, I don't know, 8 different angles and whatever, and like no one's here watching my mess ups, like no one's here watching me be a goon taking a weird angled photo, which I think is really fun for those things. But when you talk about things that you'll never get the opportunity to do, I mean, I've been, I've flown with the Blue Angels, you know, I've jumped out of a plane with the Navy Leapfrogs. I do a lot of military stories here and support our local military as we have tons of bases in San Diego, and this is the home of the Marine Corps, the Navy, and we have a Coast Guard obviously here as well. And so being able to work with our service members has been just so much fun over the years, and they feel like my family, for real, actually. And, on top of that, I mean, just the fun of, I went on a road trip to the Super Bowl, 3 different Super Bowls now. So
That's
literally
how
when
that's how you and I met. Remember we met
yeah,
face to face at one of your Super Bowl travels.
yeah, in Arizona. So the Super Bowl before that, so anytime Fox has a Super Bowl, they send me on the road and they literally send me in a car. So we've been in a 4Runner and we have done a road trip, my photographer and I, his name's Zach. He no longer works with me, but he was like, oh, like my brother, you know, from California, from San Diego to Miami. So they gave us
Wow.
10, yeah, they gave us 10 days to get from San Diego to Miami, cover everything, you know, Travel Channel style, turn these stories, make your stops, do cool exposés on where you stay, and then you're going to go live from the Super Bowl. And I was just like, this is the coolest assignment ever, you know, so many things we saw on the way that I would never get to do if I worked, I don't know, in a corporate job doing someone's taxes.
Right, exactly. That's for sure. The other story I wanted to ask you about is from, I think it was Funner, California, like fun, but it's Funner, California. I
Oh
think
yeah.
this was the assignment where you met Martin Short. What was that like?
Yeah, you know, it was really funny. Martin Short was hilarious, but I don't know if it was like one of those things where I hadn't watched his new show. You know, when you meet a celebrity and I think like you automatically either click with them or you don't, like Martin, like we needed to have had a cup of coffee before doing this live interview. And I'm just going to be so honest because he was so gracious, but I felt like, because we only had 3 minutes and then they like brought him in, there was no pre-interview time at all. And I hadn't watched his newest show. I mean, like the last thing I had seen with him, I think it was some sort of stand up or something that like a skit that he had done. But, you know, I hadn't watched Three Amigos. It was sort of that moment where I was like, okay, I did my own research, but I truly hadn't watched the Murders in the Building show,
Right.
but it was like on my bucket list, which I'm like, to be honest, that's actually watching shows is the hardest part of this job that I do. Because you just go to
Right.
bed at night. I'm like, pop culture is so hard to stay up on when you're a mom on a morning show, which I'm sure you can relate. Oops, sorry. My arm was getting tired.
That's okay. Switch it around. We
um,
don't care.
so anyway, Martin was great. We only got 3 minutes, and I feel like by the third minute was when we were like really getting into it and finally getting to know each other. But you're live. So
Right.
you're live, and then this is me my entire life. Your producer's like, rap, and I'm like, but I have Martin Short. Like, what else do you have going on the show that's not
Exactly.
more
Exactly.
important? But he was great. He was all decked out in like purple sparkles, and we were at this place called Harrah's. It's a big casino, little inland from San Diego, and I mean, that was beautiful. And I think one of my other fun, when I think of some of the celebrities, I mean, like Tom Brady, obviously, and at some of the Super Bowls, but like I'll never forget. I met Mark Wahlberg a while ago, and I just think he was like probably the most humble, like normal. It was like a man on the street, you know, just kind of like you would never think he was a celebrity kind of deal, and he's just, yeah, just really humble guy. It was pretty cool to meet him.
I love that. Those are great stories. When I first started in TV, I interviewed celebrities for junkets, like movie junkets. And I have one
Oh
horror
yeah.
story that I've been waiting my entire life to tell. And it is appropriate to tell it right now to you.
Okay.
I was my early 20s, and I was sent to Los Angeles to interview John Cusack, who, of course, is our idol from the 80s, right? I loved all his movies, and I was so nervous to interview him. And I was in the lineup where he probably had about 13, 14 report. I probably was 13 because this is so unlucky. But I was probably reporter number 13 coming in to talk to him about a movie that didn't do so well. It was called In the Garden Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil is based on a book. Anyway, long story short, I start the interview, Heather, mortifyingly, so nervous that I start asking him questions that he can answer yes or no, instead of asking him open-ended questions like a good interviewer
Yeah.
would. I ask him these questions, and so you know what he does? He nods. He doesn't even say yes or no. He goes, mm-hmm, mm-mm, mm-hmm, mm-mm. The
Oh
entire
no.
interview. I'm telling you, again 3 minutes with him because it's a junket, and so it's quick. And
Yeah.
so after the first two questions, when he does the nodding, I panic even more, and so I just keep on the same pattern. And so
Oh
then the time was up, and then I'm like, okay, thank you, and he's like, thank you. And those are the only two words he said the entire interview. And
no.
that is what I had to take back to the station. Can you imagine how mortifying? Oh my gosh. Now,
Well,
as a professional, I would look back and I would make that the story. But
yeah.
he wasn't very gracious as he could have been, but he was probably having some personal stuff going on as well. But I was mortified. That story.
And people don't realize that it does take a minute, and it might just not be that person's day, or it might be their time of day, or they haven't had a coffee. And like, I could tell that Martin wasn't like, he needed until like 10 or 10:30, and it was like 8:30, and I'm like, it's like he probably was staying in the resort and then had to get all dolled up and jazzed up for this thing. And I was the first thing right out of the gate, and then you're live, and you're like, I just needed a minute with him to like get to know this person that I'm about to throw a camera light in your face. But I'm going to pat myself on the back for a minute because I crushed a Chris Hemsworth interview this past summer, and every single one of my girlfriends, when I was posting it, they were like, how did you even finish a sentence? And I was like, I had to pretend he was really ugly. Because
Oh,
imagine you're at Comic-Con and Thor walks into the room and everyone's just sort of like, this man walks into the room and like not a single head doesn't turn, right? Like it's just like, oh my gosh. And so he's going from reporter to reporter, and we're waiting there, and my photographer's making fun of me because he's like, oh, this is going to be funny. Like if you don't get giddy, like I'm just going to record this, and whatever happens, happens. And I was like, game faces on. I was like, nailed it.
oh, that's amazing. That's great. I have to look up that interview because that sounds like a good one. I did find something. I did a little digging. Yeah, we've gotten to know each other over the last couple of years, but I did a little digging on something that I did not know about you. I had
Okay.
no idea that you have performed with Mickey Mouse.
So we all worked for either Universal Studios or Disney, and my sister and I made the decision of, what are we going to do? I had so many girlfriends that went to be Disney cast members, and I worked as a lifeguard for many, many summers, and my sister went through and was like, all right, we're going to do this, be the princesses. And I was like, you try first. And I had another girlfriend that she went on to be Snow White, but it is grueling. I don't know if they still do this. I ended up not making it because I wanted to go into my major and do all kinds of internships during the summer. But she basically had to be a fuzzy character before a face character. And this was back when you had to be Pluto or Goofy and before you could
Oh,
be
no.
Cinderella. So she was Pluto in August in Orlando, Florida.
Oh my
And then
goodness.
she was Flick from A Bug's Life, and you had to wear this like abdomen. She said it was horrible. So I don't know if I took the right route in not giving it a try, but she never made it to Cinderella. My girlfriend did make it to Snow White, and she was a fabulous Snow White. And then I actually had a handful of friends who went on to Japan, or was it Japan or Tokyo? They went to Tokyo to be Disney characters there. So they almost like lived in these dorms and were all Disney characters. I stuck to my lifeguarding skills. And
Yeah, I think you might have made the right choice there. I think you
yeah,
might have made the right choice on that one. That is great. That's so funny. What a good story. Do you just have one sister? What are your siblings?
I do. I have one younger sister. She actually lives in Scotland now, and
Oh,
so she's a nurse, and she has two little kids. And I'm waiting to see if they're gonna have accents because she moved about a year ago, and they're 3 and 4, and so it'll be interesting to see if they end up with with thick accents. I haven't gotten to visit yet, but that is definitely on the bucket list. That weather, by the way, I'm like, couldn't be more opposite than San Diego in Southern California.
Yeah, it is. It is crazy. I actually went to Scotland because I was going to try to get to the top of their highest peak, which I believe is called Ben Hur. I actually couldn't do it while I was there because they had so much fog. But you're right. It's the exact opposite. I don't think they ever see sunshine in Scotland. That's funny. Okay. I know you're finishing at Mississippi State University, all of your meteorology stuff. How's it going? Are you glad that you've pushed through to make this happen? Because you already have the job. You're already forecasting, but are you happy that you're pushing through?
Gosh, I mean, I couldn't be happier that I continued education. And I think too, you start to figure out maybe what your specialty might be. So that's what makes continued ed so important is, I think I'm really loving oceanography, and you start to look into what more do I want to do as far as my brand and my lot in life and moving forward, and maybe actually helping with conservation, and being where I live. That obviously is huge. So yeah, I mean, going back to school, I continued education and being an forever student, I think is just in my blood. It's very dense at times, and some days I wish was like, I wish I wasn't taking this midterm today, because my brain, it's like everything if something goes in one end, please don't come out the other. If I close this ear, will it stay in? So I'm being a student with being a parent and a wife and a employee. It's never a balance. It's a juggle. I will say that always. It is a juggle. If you think it's a balance, good luck to you. But
I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah, you really got to you got to figure out when the priority is in the moment. So
yeah.
it's good. I think you're on the right track, though. You won't regret doing it. And I had those moments myself through my career where I'm like working really hard and trying to figure out which thing's the most important at that moment. But doing it does pay off eventually. So I'm proud of you for going the distance on that. Finally, before we wrap up, as you look at what's in front of you, do you have something that you think is like, geez, this is something that I really want to do that I haven't done yet, an accomplishment, a milestone, like something that's out there lingering, waiting for you to grasp it?
So, I will say that completing the 6 majors for the marathons would be amazing. I've done Boston, New York, and Chicago, and getting and doing London, Berlin, and Tokyo would be, that would be incredible. So for me, I don't know if that's in my lifetime in the next decade, but they're definitely there. And it's in the back of my mind that I don't think my shoes I'm not putting my marathon shoes up just yet.
All right, good. So I'm with you on that. It's a bucket list for me as well. I'll join you for one of those races. Maybe we make London our next one because it's flat.
Amen.
But the reason we really want it, guys, it's completely vain. There's a very large necklace that you get. All the medals fit together when you do the 6 majors. They've actually added a couple circles that can go around the edge for some extra marathons. But I'd be happy with the 6 majors. And girl, I'm in it. I'm in it with you. So
let's do it. Let's do it.
Future. That's our future. All right, Heather Lake. Finally, I'm looking forward to your future podcast, which you and I have dubbed The Lake Effect.
Done.
It is so the Lake Effect. Lake Effect, by the way, guys and gals, is a type of meteorology term for how precipitation can act over a lake. But it also is the Heather Lake Effect. So
good to talk to you always, Amy.